The warning lights flashed across every screen on the bridge of the UHNS Horizon. Captain Hyenwu stood from his chair and walked closer to the main display. Something massive had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel right in front of them. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It looked organic, with curves and patterns that seemed to flow like water, frozen in time. "Contact them," Hyenwu said calmly. His crew had trained for this moment, though none of them truly believed it would happen. They were only 3 weeks into humanity's first journey beyond their own solar system. Dr. Yuna moved quickly to her station. She was the chief linguist, and her job was about to become the most important one on the ship. The alien vessel was already sending signals. Patterns of light, radio waves, and something else they couldn't quite identify. Yuna's computers began analyzing everything, searching for meaning in the chaos. It took 6 hours. 6 long hours where both ships simply waited in the darkness of space. Then the breakthrough came. The aliens were using mathematical sequences as a foundation. Prime numbers, geometric patterns, universal constants. From there, Yuna and her team built a basic translation system. It was crude but functional. The first message was simple. "We are the Galactic Council. We welcome you." Hyenwu felt his heart racing but kept his expression neutral. Humanity had wondered for centuries if they were alone. Now they had their answer. He sent a response through Yuna's system. "We are humanity. We come in peace." The alien ship requested permission to send a shuttle. Hyenwu granted it. Within an hour, a small craft docked with the Horizon. The airlock doors opened. Humanity met its first alien face to face. Counselor Thextra looked like a massive moth. If moths could stand upright and had 4 arms instead of 6 legs, its wings were folded against its back, shimmering with colors that seemed to shift in the light. When it spoke, the translation device Yuna had prepared turned its sounds into words humanity could understand. "This is a momentous day," Zextra said. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel. This is the Great Filter. You have passed it. Now you may join the community of civilized worlds." Hyenwu invited the counselor to a meeting room. Dr. Yuna joined them, along with 3 other senior officers. Thesra explained that the Galactic Council had existed for over 50,000 years. It included 847 different species from across the galaxy. They maintained peace, facilitated trade, and helped younger species develop safely. "We have protocols for this," Thesra continued. "First contact is always handled carefully. We understand you need time to adjust to the reality of galactic civilization. We will provide you with basic technology, cultural information, and a pathway to membership." It all sounded wonderful. Too wonderful, perhaps. Hyenwu asked about the details. What exactly did council membership require? Vextra produced a device that projected holographic text in the air. The terms appeared, translated into multiple human languages. Hyenwu read through them carefully. The council would provide protection, technology, and access to thousands of worlds. In exchange, humanity would need to limit its military, accept council oversight on certain technologies, and agree to population management policies. "These are standard terms," Dextra assured them. "Every species accepts them. It is simply how civilization functions at the galactic scale. You cannot have thousands of species each doing whatever they wish. There must be order." Hyenwu nodded slowly. He asked for time to consult with Earth. Dextra agreed readily. The counselor seemed confident, even relaxed. This was routine for them. The Horizon transmitted everything back to Earth using their new quantum communication system. The signal would take time to reach home, and the response would take time to return. Meanwhile, Dextra waited patiently on the ship, fascinating the crew with stories of the galaxy. 3 days later, the response came. Earth's unified government had reviewed the Council's offer. They had debated for hours. Every major nation had participated. The decision was unanimous, though it surprised even some of those who voted for it. Ambassador Giwan had been hastily appointed as humanity's first official representative to alien civilizations. She was a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties between Earth's nations for 20 years. Now she faced a far more significant challenge. Earth had given her their decision, and she had to deliver it. She met with Fexra in the Horizon's conference room. The counselor seemed pleased, already preparing documents for humanity's integration into the council. "We have considered your generous offer," Kiwan began. She spoke clearly and carefully, making sure the translation system would capture every word correctly. "We appreciate the opportunity you have presented to us. We are honored that you would welcome us into your community." This Saracentani twitched with what might have been pleasure. "Of course, your species shows great promise. The transition will be smooth, I assure you." However, Jiwan continued, and Nexrezenteni went still. "We must respectfully decline your offer." The silence in the room was absolute. Dexter stared at Jiwan for a long moment. When the counselor finally spoke, there was confusion in its translated voice. "I do not understand." "Perhaps there was a translation error. You are refusing council membership?" "There is no error," Jiwan said. "We are grateful for your offer, but humanity chooses to remain independent. We will chart our own course." Dexter stood abruptly, its wings fluttering with agitation. "This is not how first contact proceeds. Species do not refuse. The Council offers protection, knowledge, stability. What you are doing is dangerous. The galaxy is not a safe place for those who stand alone." "We understand the risks," Juan replied calmly. "But we have decided that self-determination is worth those risks. We hope we can maintain friendly relations with the Council, but we will not join it." Extra tried again. Perhaps humans did not understand what they were refusing? The counselor explained in greater detail about the benefits. The technology alone would advance humanity by thousands of years. The medical knowledge would eliminate diseases. The energy systems would end resource scarcity. Guan listened politely to it all. When Nexra finished, she simply repeated humanity's position. "Thank you, but no." The counselor left the Horizon clearly disturbed. Before departing, Vexra warned that this decision was unwise. "You do not understand what you are doing. You are children playing with forces beyond your comprehension. The Council will give you time to reconsider. When you realize your mistake, we will still be here." The alien shuttle undocked and returned to the massive Council ship. Haiyan-Wu and his crew watched as the vessel activated its faster-than-light drive and vanished. "Leaving the Horizon alone in the darkness once more? Do you think they will leave us alone?" Yuna asked. Haiyan-Wu shook his head slowly. "No, I think we just made the galaxy a much more complicated place." "Like on Earth?" The news spread quickly. Humanity had met aliens. The aliens had offered them everything, and humanity had said no. Some people celebrated the decision. Others called it foolish, but it was done. Humanity had announced to the galaxy that they would walk their own path, regardless of where it led, in the council chambers. Millions of light years away, Vexra made its report. The High Arbiter listened in disbelief. In 50,000 years, this had never happened. Not once had a species simply refused membership. "What do we do?" Vexra asked. The High Arbiter was silent for a long time. Finally, it spoke. "We watch. We wait. And we prepare for possibilities we have never had to consider before." The first seeds of panic had been planted. 6 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. In that time, the Council had sent for more diplomatic missions to Earth. Each one came with better offers than the last. Advanced medical technology that could extend human lifespans by centuries. Energy systems that could power entire cities from a device the size of a car. Cultural exchanges with species who had been exploring art and philosophy for millennia. Ambassador. Guan met with each delegation. She was always polite, always respectful, always grateful, and she always gave them the same answer. "Thank you, but we will manage on our own." The council representatives left Earth increasingly confused. They reported back to the High Arbiter that humans seemed to understand what they were refusing. This was not ignorance. It was something else entirely. Something the council had no experience dealing with. While the council debated what to do about humanity's stubbornness, humans themselves were not sitting idle. Engineer Mingi worked 18-hour days in a facility orbiting Mars. She and her team were analyzing every scan they had taken of council technology. They could not simply copy it. They did not have the materials or the manufacturing techniques. But they could understand the principles behind it. Human faster-than-light travel was crude compared to Council ships. It used enormous amounts of energy and could only make short jumps before needing to recharge. Minji's team found ways to make it more efficient. They could not match Council technology, but they could improve their own. Each breakthrough was shared freely with every nation on Earth. Humanity moved forward together. Admiral Dawn commanded Earth's first expeditionary fleet. It consisted of 15 ships, each carrying everything needed to start a new colony. The admiral was a careful man who had spent 40 years in military service. He understood that humanity was taking enormous risks by expanding without Council guidance. But he also believed in humanity's right to take those risks. The fleet's first target was a planet the Council had catalogued but deemed unsuitable for colonization. The gravity was slightly too high, and the atmosphere needed adjustment. Council records suggested it would take at least a century to make the world habitable using their approved methods. Humanity did it in 8 months. They used aggressive terraforming techniques that the Council would never permit. They took risks with the ecosystem. They built their colony in a way that prioritized speed over caution. It worked. The colony, named New Jeju, began thriving. Then came more colonies. New Seoul, New Busan, New Incheon. Within a year, humanity had 6 worlds with permanent settlements. Within 18 months, they had 15. They were expanding at a rate that shocked the Council observers who watched from a distance. Counselor. Zix of the Core Dominion was not amused. He was a large reptilian who had served on the Council for 300 years. In his view, humanity was behaving like children who refused to listen to their elders. Worse, they were taking resources without asking permission. They were mining asteroids in systems the Council had designated as natural preserves. They were terraforming worlds the Council had marked as unsuitable. This cannot continue, Zix declared in the Council chambers. Humanity's expansion is an act of aggression. They are violating the natural order of galactic civilization. They must be made to understand that there are consequences for their actions. The debate in the Council chambers went on for days. Some counselors agreed with Zix. Others, like the pacifist Meralta, argued that humanity should be left alone. If they wanted to develop independently, what harm did it cause? But Zix and his supporters won the argument. The Council would send a message. A clear one. A Council fleet moved to the human colony of New Jeju. They did not attack. They did not threaten violence. They simply surrounded the planet and prevented any ships from entering or leaving. It was a blockade, designed to show humanity that the Council's patience had limits. Subin was the colony leader on New Jeju. She was a tough woman who had volunteered to be among the first colonists. When the Council ships appeared, she immediately contacted Earth. The message took time to travel, even with quantum communication. By the time Admiral Daejung received it, the blockade had been in place for 12 hours. The Admiral did not hesitate. He gathered every available ship and set course for New Jeju at maximum speed. The journey would take 2 days. During that time, the Council fleet commander sent messages to the colony below. The blockade would end as soon as humanity agreed to begin negotiations for Council membership. No one would be harmed. This was simply a demonstration of what isolation meant. Subin sent back a simple message. We do not negotiate under threat. When Admiral Daejung's fleet arrived, the Council ships detected them immediately. The Council commander sent a warning. Human ships should turn back. This was Council business. Interference would be viewed as hostile action. Daejun ignored the warning. His ships moved into formation around New Jeju, facing the Council vessels. The situation was tense. Both sides knew that a single mistake could start a war. The Council ships were superior in almost every way. They had energy shields that could absorb tremendous damage. Their weapons could tear through human ships like paper. But the Council commander had strict orders. Do not start a war. This was meant to be a demonstration, not a battle. Admiral Daejung had no such restrictions. If the Council wanted to blockade a human colony, they would have to deal with the consequences. He gave the order. His ships launched their weapons. Not energy beams or plasma bolts. Humanity did not have those yet. They used missiles. Hundreds of them. Moving at speeds close to light itself, the Council ships' defensive systems were designed to handle energy weapons and solid projectiles moving at normal speeds. They were not prepared for the sheer number of missiles, each one programmed to make its own decisions about targeting and evasion. The Council ships' computers were overwhelmed. 3 vessels were hit before they could adjust their defenses. The damage was not catastrophic, but it was enough to disable them. The Council commander faced a choice: escalate or retreat. His orders said to avoid war. He chose retreat. The blockade broke. The Council ships pulled back, recovering their damaged vessels. But Dejong did something the Council did not expect. Instead of celebrating or pursuing, he sent rescue teams. Human ships moved alongside the damaged Council vessels and offered assistance. They helped evacuate crew members who were injured. They provided repair materials. They treated their enemy with respect even in victory. The Council commander was deeply confused. Humans had just attacked his fleet. Now they were helping them. He accepted the assistance because his crew needed it. But he reported back to the Council that humanity was unlike any species he had ever encountered. Back in the Council chambers, panic began to set in. They had tried to intimidate humanity with a simple blockade. Instead, humans had broken it within hours. 3 Council ships had been disabled by a species that was barely a year into their spacefaring age. How was this possible? Zix demanded a larger response. A full military fleet should be sent to contain humanity before they became an even greater problem. But other counselors were now hesitant. Miralta pointed out that the humans had shown restraint even in victory. They had helped the wounded. This was not the behavior of an aggressive species. And what are they? Someone asked. No one had an answer. Humanity did not fit any of the patterns the Council had seen in 50,000 years. They refused help but were not hostile. They defended themselves but showed mercy. They expanded rapidly but did not conquer others. They were something new, and the Council did not know how to respond. On New Jeju, Subin stood outside the colony's main building and looked up at the stars. The Council ships were gone. The blockade was over. Humanity had won this round, but she knew there would be more challenges ahead. The Council would not simply give up. Back on Earth, Engineer Minji received data from the battle. Her teams analyzed every sensor reading from the encounter. They learned from it. The Council ships' defensive systems had specific weaknesses. Their weapons had predictable firing patterns. This information would help humanity prepare for the next confrontation. Whatever form it might take, Admiral Dejung returned to Earth a hero, but he felt no pride. He had just fought the first battle between humanity and the Galactic Council. He hoped it would be the last, but he doubted it. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. They would not let one stubborn species disrupt their order so easily. The question was not if the Council would return. The question was how and what humanity would do when they did. The Council chambers had never been so chaotic. For 3 weeks straight, emergency sessions ran day and night. Counselor after counselor stood to speak, and the debates grew more heated each day. The question that consumed them all was simple, but impossible to answer. What do we do about humanity? High Arbiter Velmont watched from the central platform. The crystalline entity had led the Council for over 2,000 years. In all that time, it had never seen the Council so divided. Some wanted aggressive action against humanity. Others argued for patience. A growing minority suggested that humanity should simply be left alone. Counselor. Miralta was the loudest voice in that minority. She was a being who looked like flowing water held in a vaguely humanoid shape. Her species valued peace above all else. And she had served on the Council for 6 centuries, without ever voting for military action. "We are making a mistake," Miralta said during one heated session. "Humanity does not threaten us. They simply want to be left alone. Why can we not grant them this?" Zix slammed his clawed hand on his podium. "Because other species are watching. 3 member species have already filed requests to renegotiate their membership terms. They cite humanity as precedent. If we allow this, the entire council structure could collapse. This was the real fear. The council had maintained its power for millennia through a simple principle. Every species accepted membership. Every species followed the rules. There were no exceptions. Humanity's refusal threatened to unravel everything. While the council debated, humanity continued its expansion. New colonies appeared in systems the council had never even surveyed. Human ships were everywhere, exploring, mining, building. They moved with a speed and determination that unnerved many council members. On Earth, diplomat Tai Yang prepared for his mission. He was young for such an important role, only 32 years old. But he had a gift for understanding different perspectives. Earth's government had chosen him to try to ease tensions with the council, not through submission, but through explanation. Tai Yang traveled to council space aboard a human diplomatic vessel. He requested permission to address the council directly. After much debate, they granted it. He stood in the same chambers where 847 species were represented, and he spoke clearly. "We are not your enemies," Tai Yang began. "We understand that our refusal has caused confusion, perhaps even fear. But please understand our position. For all of human history, we have struggled for freedom. We have fought wars, built societies, and made terrible mistakes, all in the pursuit of self-determination. When you offer us protection in exchange for our independence, you ask us to give up the very thing that defines us." The council listened. Some were moved by his words. Others remained skeptical. Zix interrupted. "Fine words. Human. But words do not change reality. Your expansion threatens the established order. Your technology develops without oversight. Your colonies spread without permission. This cannot continue." Tai Yang nodded. "We understand your concerns. But consider this. For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained peace through uniformity. Every species follows the same path. But what if there is another way? What if humanity can show that independence and cooperation can coexist?" It was a radical idea. The Council had never considered such a possibility. Their entire system was built on the opposite principle: order through unity, safety through control. The idea that species could cooperate without submission was almost incomprehensible to them. Meanwhile, a human researcher named Hannah was causing trouble of a different kind. She was a xenanthropologist who specialized in studying cultural systems. She had spent months analyzing council society, reviewing their public records, interviewing members of various species. Her conclusions were published in a paper that spread rapidly through both human and council communication networks. The paper was titled "The Cost of Eternal Stability." Hannah argued that the council's structure, while successful at maintaining peace, had also stifled innovation and cultural development. Member species showed little technological advancement after joining. Their cultures became static. They were safe, but they were also stagnant. The paper included specific examples. Species that had shown incredible creativity and innovation before joining the council had produced almost nothing new in the centuries since. The council provided them with everything they needed. But it also removed the necessity that drove progress. The paper was meant for academic discussion. But it became something more. Young members of council species began reading it and discussing it. They started asking uncomfortable questions. Why had their people not invented anything new in 1,000 years? Why did they follow council guidelines without question? Was safety worth the price of stagnation? Council elders tried to suppress the paper, but it was too late. The ideas had spread. For the first time in millennia, council species were questioning their own system. Back on Earth, General Junho reviewed another offer from the council. This one was unprecedented. They were offering humanity a seat on the High Council itself. No new species had ever been granted such an honor so quickly. It came with enormous prestige and power. Humanity would have a voice in galactic affairs that took other species. Centuries to earn. Jun-Ho read through the offer carefully. It was tempting. Being on the High Council would give humanity influence over galactic policy. They could shape decisions that affected trillions of beings. But the price was still the same: membership, oversight, loss of full sovereignty. He sent the offer up the chain of command. Earth's unified government debated it for 2 days. The vote was not even close. They rejected it. The answer was sent back to the council through Ambassador Giwan, who by now had delivered the same message so many times she could recite it in her sleep. "We appreciate the honor, but our answer remains unchanged." Valmont received the rejection with something resembling despair. The council had offered humanity everything it could: protection, technology, knowledge, power, and humanity continued to refuse. The High Arbiter began to understand that this was not about what the council was offering. It was about what they were asking in return. Humanity valued something the council could not comprehend. They valued the right to make their own choices more than they valued safety or advancement. It was illogical from the council's perspective, but it was also unshakable. The situation within the council continued to deteriorate. 5 species now openly discussed leaving or renegotiating their membership. Trade efficiency dropped as human merchants offered better deals with fewer restrictions. Council military forces faced criticism for their failure to handle the new Jeju blockade. Meralta saw an opportunity. She began building a coalition of moderate council members who believed humanity should be accommodated rather than confronted. She argued that the council's strength came from flexibility, not rigidity. If they could find a way to work with humanity while respecting their independence, they could prove the council was still relevant in a changing galaxy. But Zix and his supporters were preparing their own solution. They believed force was the only language humanity would understand. Not war, but something close to it. A complete economic and diplomatic isolation. If humanity wanted to stand alone, then they would truly stand alone. The council scheduled a vote on the matter. Would they pursue accommodation or isolation? The galaxy watched and waited. Member species on both sides of the debate prepared for either outcome. On Earth, Defense Minister Kung Su convened emergency meetings with military leaders. Intelligence suggested the council was planning something significant. Human spy satellites in council space had detected massive fleet movements. Ships were gathering at staging points near human territory, Captain Yunji commanded. Humanity's stealth reconnaissance fleet. Her ships were designed to be nearly invisible. Using technology humanity had developed specifically to operate near council space without being detected. She reported that the council was preparing a containment fleet that dwarfed anything they had deployed before. "If they surround all of human space," Yunji warned, "we will be completely isolated. No trade, no communication with other species. Nothing in or out." Kung Su understood the implications. Humanity could survive such isolation, but it would be costly. Years of development would be lost. Lives would be harder. The price of independence would become very real. Earth's leaders faced their hardest decision yet. They could still accept council membership. It would solve everything. Or they could prepare for isolation and trust that humanity could survive it. A philosopher named Nari published an essay at exactly this moment. It spread through human networks within hours and somehow reached council space within days. The essay was called "The Freedom to Stand Alone." In it, Nari argued that true civilization was measured not by how many you could bring into your fold, but by how you treated those who chose to remain outside it. The essay resonated deeply. Humans shared it with pride. But surprisingly, it also touched many in council space. Young beings from a dozen species contacted human channels to say that the essay had made them see their own society differently. The ultimatum arrived on a cold morning in Geneva, where Earth's unified government maintained its headquarters. Ambassador Juwan received it directly from Counselor Brentok, who had traveled to Earth specifically to deliver the message in person. Brentok was a being who resembled a collection of geometric shapes held together by some invisible force. He was known as a moderate, someone who had tried to find middle ground in the Council's endless debates about humanity. "I am sorry," Brentok said, as he handed over the data chip containing the official ultimatum. His translated voice carried genuine regret. "I argued against this. but I was outvoted. Yuan took the chip and loaded it into the display system. The message was clear and formal. Humanity had 60 days to accept council membership under the standard terms. If they refused, the council would classify them as a rogue civilization. Economic quarantine would begin. Diplomatic isolation would be total. No council species would be permitted to trade with or communicate with humanity. It was not a declaration of war, but it was close. You understand what this means? Brentok asked. You will be completely alone, cut off from the entire galactic community. Guan nodded slowly. We understand. Thank you for delivering this personally.
Yes.
After Brentok left, Quan immediately called an emergency meeting. Within hours, Earth's top leaders gathered in the Situation Room. Defense Minister Kyung-soo presented the military analysis. Captain Yunja's reconnaissance had revealed the full extent of the Council's preparations. They were assembling a containment fleet of over 300 ships. The vessels would form a complete sphere around all of human space, maintaining a blockade that would be nearly impossible to break. Can we fight through it? Someone asked. Admiral Daejung shook his head. Not without massive casualties. These are not like the ships we faced at New Jeju. The Council is bringing their serious military assets. We might break through in one location, but they would simply close the gap. And every battle would cost us ships we cannot easily replace. General Junho added more grim news. Even if we could break the blockade, where would we go? They are not just threatening military action. The economic isolation would be devastating. Every species we have established trade with would cut ties. Resources we need would become unavailable. The room fell silent. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Premier Hanzal, Earth's head of government, looked around at the faces of his advisors. Each one showed the strain of the past months. We have 3 options, Hansel said finally. We can accept membership and end this crisis. We can prepare for isolation and hope we can survive it. Or we can do something the Council will not expect. Everyone looked at him. What do you have in mind? Guan asked. Hansel pulled up a document on the main screen. What if we propose an alternative framework? Something that allows cooperation without submission? The idea took shape over the next week. Human diplomats, philosophers, economists, and military strategists worked around the clock. They created something they called the Free Association Accord. It was a framework for cooperation between sovereign civilizations. Species could choose to participate without surrendering their independence. There would be voluntary standards for trade, communication protocols, and dispute resolution, but no mandatory oversight. No forced integration. Just equals working together by choice. It was revolutionary. It was also completely untested. No one knew if the Council would even consider such a proposal. But humanity had 53 days left, and they had to try something. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Nari's essay continued to spread. The philosopher had not expected her work to reach so far. She received messages from beings on dozens of Council worlds. Young members of various species wrote to tell her that they had never questioned their society until reading her words. Some even began organizing discussion groups to debate the ideas she had presented. The Council leadership tried to contain this growing movement, but it was like trying to hold back water with a net. Every attempt to suppress the discussions only made them more popular. Councillor Vex, a newly appointed member from a minor species, became the movement's voice within the Council chambers. Vex was young by Council standards, only 200 years old. His species had joined the Council 8 centuries ago after a devastating war nearly destroyed their civilization. The Council had saved them, given them peace and stability. For generations, his people had been grateful. But Vex had read Hannah's paper about stagnation. He had read Nari's essay about freedom. And he had started to wonder what his species had lost in exchange for safety. When Vex spoke in the Council chambers, his words carried the frustration of centuries. We joined the Council to save ourselves from destruction. We were grateful then. We are still grateful. But I look at my people now, and I see that we have not created anything new in 800 years. We follow Council guidelines. We accept Council decisions. We exist, but we do not truly live. Is this what we were saved for? His speech shocked the chamber. Elder counselors called it ungrateful and dangerous, but younger members from across the galaxy began to echo his sentiments. The council was facing something it had never experienced before: internal dissent on a massive scale. On day 59, humanity's response to the ultimatum arrived. Ambassador Juwan stood before the assembled council, with Premier Hansal and diplomat Taiyang beside her. Every council member was present. The chamber was packed. This moment would determine the future of human council, relations, and possibly the future of the council itself. Guillawan spoke clearly. We have considered your ultimatum carefully. We understand the position you are in. Our refusal has created problems for you. It has raised questions among your own members. For this disruption, we are genuinely sorry. But we cannot apologize for choosing independence. Murmurs filled the chamber. Zix stood, ready to declare the discussion over and the quarantine begun. But Jiwan raised her hand. However, we do not believe isolation serves anyone's interests. We propose an alternative. She activated a holographic display that showed the framework of the Free Association Accord. This is a new model for cooperation. One where species can work together without surrendering sovereignty, where trade and communication can flow freely between equals, where younger civilizations can learn from older ones without being controlled by them. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors immediately rejected the idea as impossible. Others demanded to know more details. Velmount called for order, and slowly the chaos subsided. Premier Hansel stepped forward. We are not asking you to dissolve the council. For species that value the structure and security it provides, it should continue. But allow those who choose differently to participate in galactic civilization on their own terms. Create space for multiple paths, not just one. Counselor Morelta stood. I support this proposal. We should at least discuss it before resorting to isolation. Zix was furious. This is a trick. Humanity faces overwhelming force, so they offer words. We should proceed with the containment as planned. But Vex stood as well. No, we should listen. For 50,000 years, the Council has operated one way. Perhaps it is time to consider that there might be another way. The debate raged for hours. Humanity's delegation stood silently, letting the Council work through the implications. Some species saw opportunity in the proposal. Others saw the end of everything they had built. The chamber was split almost evenly. Finally, Velmount spoke. The High Arbiter's crystalline voice carried authority that silenced everyone. This is not a decision we can make today. The containment fleet is already moving into position. But we will not activate the quarantine immediately. Humanity has proposed something unprecedented. We will debate it properly. We will hear arguments from all sides, and then we will decide as a council what path to take. It was not acceptance. But it was not rejection either. It was something humanity had earned through their stubborn refusal to give in. It was consideration. Real consideration of an alternative to the only system the galaxy had known for 50,000 years. Giwan allowed herself a small smile. Thank you, High Arbiter. That is all we ask. A chance to prove that cooperation and independence can coexist. As humanity's delegation left the council chambers, they knew the hard work was just beginning. They had 60 days to convince the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilization to change its fundamental operating principles. It seemed impossible. But then again, everyone had said humanity's refusal was impossible too. The countdown continued. The containment fleet moved closer, and the galaxy watched to see if words could change what 50,000 years of tradition had established. The 60 days passed like water through fingers. Each day brought humanity closer to either acceptance or isolation. The council chambers became a place of constant activity. Debates ran from morning until late into the night. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries suddenly found themselves on the same side of arguments. The entire galactic political structure was shifting. Premier Hansal remained on Earth, coordinating humanity's response to the crisis. He received daily reports from Ambassador Giwan about the council's internal debates. The news was mixed. For every counselor who supported the Free Association Accord, another declared it would destroy everything the council had built. The votes seemed to be exactly split down the middle. On day 60, the containment fleet reached its position. 300 council ships formed a perfect sphere around all of human space. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply waited. From inside the sphere, human colonies could see the ships in their skies. It was a reminder of the power the council could bring to bear if they chose. But something unexpected was happening aboard those ships. Human broadcasts were reaching them. Earth's communication networks transmitted everything openly. News reports, entertainment, scientific papers, political debates. Council crews could monitor it all. Many of them had never been exposed to human culture before. What they saw surprised them. Humans argued constantly. Their news networks showed heated disagreements about every topic. Their government officials debated policy in public forums where anyone could watch. Their scientists published findings before reaching complete consensus. To council observers, it looked like chaos. But it was also vibrant and alive in a way council society had not been for millennia. Young crew members on the council ships began discussing what they were seeing. Some were disgusted by the apparent disorder. Others found it fascinating. A few began to wonder if their own societies had traded too much stability for the loss of that vitality. In the council chambers, the final debate began. It would last 3 days and nights. Every counselor would have a chance to speak. At the end, they would vote on 3 options. Accept humanity's Free Association Accord and allow multiple pathways for galactic cooperation. Enforce the containment and isolate humanity completely. Or compromise by offering humanity a modified membership with greater autonomy. Zik spoke first for the isolationists. Humanity has rejected us at every turn. They expand without permission. They develop technology without oversight. They influence our own members with dangerous ideas. If we do not stop them now, the council will fracture. Better to isolate one species than lose control of all civilization. His words carried weight. Many elder counselors nodded in agreement. They had built the council's peace over millennia. They would not see it destroyed by one stubborn species, but then Counselor Vex stood to speak for the reformers. I have listened to the elders speak of maintaining what we have built. But I ask you, what have we built? Yes, we have peace. Yes, we have stability. But at what cost? 800 years ago, my people created beautiful art, revolutionary science, and bold new philosophies. Today, we create nothing. We exist within council guidelines and call it civilization. Humanity offers us something we have forgotten: the freedom to grow, to change, to be more than we are. The chamber erupted in argument. Elder counselors accused Vex of betraying the very system that had saved his people. Younger members supported him, citing Hannah's research about stagnation. The debate became heated, more passionate than anything the council had seen in centuries. Merelta offered the compromise position. Perhaps we do not need to choose between complete isolation and radical change. We could offer humanity a special status, cooperation without full membership. A test case to see if such an arrangement can work. 8. It was a reasonable suggestion. But Premier Hanzal had already considered this option and rejected it. When Jawan presented humanity's response, it was clear. We appreciate the compromise, but it still places humanity in a lesser position. Either we are equals in this galaxy, or we are not. We will not accept a middle ground that still defines us as subordinate. The stubbornness that had frustrated the council for months was now being applied to their own compromise. Some counselors found it infuriating. Others respected the consistency. As the debate continued, something remarkable happened in human space. Citizens on Earth and the colonies began broadcasting messages directly to the council fleet. Not official government communications, but personal messages. Artists sent their work. Musicians shared their songs. Ordinary people recorded videos explaining why independence mattered to them. A teacher named Gia from New Seoul spoke to the camera with her students behind her. We are not trying to destroy your council. We are not your enemies. We simply want our children to grow up free to make their own mistakes and their own triumphs. Is that so hard to understand? Messages like this reached the council ships by the thousands. The crews watched them, and something began to shift. These were not the words of a dangerous rogue civilization. These were people asking for the same thing any being wanted: the right to determine their own future. On the final day of debate, High Arbiter Velmont did something unprecedented. The crystalline entity left the council chambers and traveled alone to meet with Premier Hanzal. They met in neutral space, on a small station between council territory and human space. No guards, no advisors. Just two leaders trying to understand each other. Why? Velmont asked. I have led the council for 2,000 years. I have seen thousands of species join. Every one of them was grateful for what we offered. Why does humanity alone refuse? Hansal looked at the alien entity. Despite their differences in form and experience, he saw something he recognized. A leader trying to do what was best for their people. Because in 10,000 years I want humanity's descendants to look back and say they chose their own path. Whether that path leads to greatness or failure, it will be ours. Can your council species say the same? Can they point to their last 1,000 years and say those were the choices they made, the risks they took, the dreams they pursued? Velmont was silent for a long time. When the High Arbiter finally spoke, there was something different in the translated voice. Uncertainty, not no. We have maintained peace for so long that I cannot remember what it was like before. Perhaps we have confused peace with stagnation. There is a third option, Hansel said. Not isolation. Not forced integration. True cooperation between different philosophies. Your council can continue for those who value its structure, but allow others to choose differently. Create space in the galaxy for multiple approaches to civilization. The meeting ended without a resolution. Velmont returned to the council chambers. The final vote was scheduled for that evening. The galaxy held its breath. When the vote came, it was closer than anyone expected. The motion to enforce isolation failed by 12 votes. The motion to accept the Free Association Accord as proposed also failed by 8 votes. But the compromise passed. The Council would ratify a modified version of humanity's proposal. The Council would remain for species who wanted its structure, but membership would become truly voluntary. Species could choose their level of integration. New frameworks for cooperation between sovereign civilizations would be established. It was not everything humanity wanted, but it was a revolution nonetheless. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Council acknowledged that there might be more than one valid way to organize. Galactic civilization, the containment fleet withdrew. The quarantine was canceled. Across the galaxy, 8 species immediately announced they would renegotiate their memberships as sovereign partners rather than subordinate members. The council's structure began to shift and adapt. Captain Deng Hein commanded the escort fleet as the first 3 council species arrived to negotiate their new relationship with both the council and humanity. Scholar Gia recorded everything, documenting how one species' refusal became a catalyst for change across the galaxy. Ambassador Jawan stood on an observation deck on a new space station built specifically for the Free Association Forum. It occupied neutral territory, equally accessible to council members, independent species, and humanity. Ships from dozens of civilizations arrived, some still fully integrated with the council, some newly independent, all coming together by choice rather than obligation. Hugh, the captain who had made first contact with the council, retired from active service. He was offered a position as an instructor, teaching new crews about the importance of maintaining humanity's core values even. When facing overwhelming pressure to conform, engineer Minji continued her work, now collaborating with scientists from other species who had chosen independence. Together they developed technologies that neither group could have created alone. Innovation flourished in ways the Council had not seen in millennia. The galaxy was changing. The Council adapted, becoming more flexible and accepting of different approaches. Some elder counselors retired, unable to accept the new reality. Younger members like Vex stepped into leadership roles, bringing fresh perspectives to ancient institutions.